I'm Aaron Spatz, and this is the Veterans Business Podcast, a podcast centered around the stories of U.S. military veterans and their adventures in the business world following their time in service. It's stories of challenges and obstacles, and an inside look at how veterans find their life's work, their purpose, and their post-military lives. I had the pleasure this week to speak with Chaunte Hall, an Air Force veteran and accomplished businesswoman making a tremendous impact in the military community. Chaunte opens up about her personal life, while also sharing some key insights regarding having foresight for your career.
And when we get out of the military, if we don't foresee that pathway that we're used to seeing, we can easily give up hope and a level of pursuance because we don't know what to pursue.
And how volunteering is the superpower to giving back.
We volunteer. And I love that about the military. We're always voluntold to do something. And I firmly believe in my heart that is our ability to give back, that keeps us moving forward.
You're going to love this episode. Let's get to it. Well, Chaunte, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on the show. I'm excited that you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I think the best place to start would be share with us some of your background, how you found yourself into the military, and you give us a little bit of a picture of what you did while you were in.
Yeah, so my entire family served in the military. So from grandparents, aunts, uncles, to both of my parents, being raised in the military culture, in the military environment, that definitely led me to join. Plus, my father was my recruiter, and he kind of made me.
That's great.
Yes, he was actually my recruiter.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, and so it's always been, there's many jokes to that, but we won't get into all that. But when I joined the military prior September 11th, my goal was to join to serve our great nation. I definitely believed in service. And then to get my degree. So I was that young airman that joined. My father told me to go the logistics route because I would have time to actually go to school. And then so 4 years, I thought I'd have my degree, I'd get out. I would have kind of followed in my family's footsteps. But life happens, and there are always things that kind of get in the way. And so as a young airman, I was enrolled in school full time, but then September 11th happened. And September 11th definitely changed, the Air Force culture. And so I went through some trials and tribulations with school. And back then there wasn't a lot in place to ensure that the military was being taken care of when it came to education. So for example, after September 11th, the base was shut down for a week. Yep. And none of the airmen could leave. We all had separate posts where we were doing security details. And when I went back to school the following week and had the makeup work that I had with me and then was asking to make up the other coursework, I was actually told no.
Oh, wow.
And so I was so upset and disgruntled. I was 19 years old. That I actually quit school. I dropped out right there and took the withdrawals, the W's, and I left. And so considering that I still wanted my education when that calmed down, I tried various other platforms of enrolling in a different college too. They had just come out with videos, and I was doing Liberty videos on a deployment, trying to teach myself math.
Oh. Man.
To when you remember when Phoenix came out with kind of that first online school platform, and it was definitely back then it was difficult to navigate through the process.
Wow, I can't imagine what that was like, especially in the post 9/11 world. I mean, how did that really alter your trajectory in terms of what you were trying to accomplish? Were you able to still get done what you're wanting to get done during that time, or did you have to continue to put it off?
Well, it definitely put off a lot. And that was the situation. I think personally, being raised in the military environment and living overseas, my father was stationed in Japan and my mom homeschooled us at the time, that when that community college, when that happened to me and I got out of school and then I ended up deciding to go on a video route for a while, I think that I was able to transition successfully kind of within each arena because I was used to it. I had grown up that way. But you take the average, normal, everyday person who at the time may have been, they had completed high school or they may have had some community college and they were used to that platform. And then to try to switch and, well, here's videos to learn from, or now here's, the newest digital angel from University of Phoenix and try to navigate through this.
Wow.
Now that I believe could have definitely hindered a lot of people from even trying to go to school. So that's what made my education kind of, it took far longer than I ever thought it would have to accomplish my degrees. But I eventually ended up accomplishing the goals that I had,
Awesome.
But I stayed in the military far longer. So I was active duty for 10 years and I switched to the reserves and I was a reservist for 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So maybe that contributed a little bit to a smooth transition. I mean, what did the transition process look like for you?
No, I don't think that having credentials helps for a smoother transition. I think that it's one's ability to articulate clearly what they want to do and understanding that there are job pathways, there are career pathways in the civilian sector, just like they are in the military. And so I would say the one smart move that I made when I got out, and I ended up choosing to get out to actually finish my bachelor's degree at the time.
Okay.
So the one smart move that I made was I did get out from active duty and the very next day I was in the reserves. And so I think because I still was able to touch the military community, I didn't feel as alone. But coming from that military background, had I not had done that, I definitely would have had a much harder time.
Yeah.
Another benefit that I had was I had my family. And so I had support structure when after my last deployment with the Army, my family was very supportive and said, "Hey, what do you want to do if you could do anything?" And I shared with them how I wanted to open a gym. So they let me move back home to San Antonio, Texas with them while I started pursuing not only finishing my degree, bachelor's in business at the time, but also opening my gym, to realizing that as passionate as I was about fitness, I was not passionate to answering to every single person who walked through the door, AKA my clientele.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but because of pathway and my father was in education, he ensured that my educational goals were always aligned with the Bureau of Labor Statistics and all the data and research that's out there. And that's one thing that helped. And so for me personally, I was able to, sell that gym. I was a director at the YMCA because I had a bachelor's in business. The personal training certifications and licensures help support the backing of working for, a health and wellness institution, but it's the degree that ensures that you can get into the door. And so I do take education very seriously. Immediately when the GI Bill came out and said, we will support online school, I thought, well, now's the perfect time to get my master's degree. And I was going to get a master's in Christian studies. But my father said, and he loves Jesus, but my father said, the hell you are. And he said, you have to think about the future and what would you do with that? And I said, well, I teach Sunday school. He goes, exactly. You teach Sunday school. You're already teaching Sunday school. So you don't need to go get a degree in that. You need to look at what's going on in the world and you should pursue an MPA with an emphasis in government and policy. And I thought, why? Not foreseeing the path that I'm now on. And so, I'm a firm believer that your educational pathway should, enhance the direction of economic stability and what's going on a global scale to ensure relevancy.
That's good. Would you mind expanding on that a little bit more? Because that was a great line right there. So share with us a little bit more about what all that means and how you think that would best apply to those that may be listening to this.
There's a reason why this is the best way that I could put it. When you join the military, you're given a list of jobs that you can walk into. I think. I'm not sure about the Marines.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just teasing you.
Similar.
Similar.
Yeah.
So you're given a list of jobs, and then and you take whatever that is. And the military strategically has done this. They take you, they make sure you have all the training, the certifications, the licensures, and in my biased opinion, we train the best of the best. There's a reason why we are a global force. There's a reason why we have the platform that we do. We are the strongest military force in the entire world because we train, we prepare, we educate. And so as you're looking at the civilian sector and understanding that even the military culture within itself has these career pathways and these needs for these certain positions, well, so does the civilian sector. And so a lot of times, you and I were laughing earlier because we hear the parrots out there. And what is going to set you apart from being a parrot? And that's where I look at, there are certain jobs that are needed, period. This is the reason why the colleges and the certifications and the licensures, why they have the degrees that they do, why they have those certs, why they have those, HVAC, plumbing, all the trades. It's something that we've really gotten away from. And today alone in the state of Texas, since, we're both in Texas,
right.
If you go to the Texas Workforce Commission, you'll see the top 10 jobs right now that are available, and 8 of them are in the trades.
Wow.
8.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so take our level of business acumen and say, okay, Chaunte, that's great that you have an MPA with an emphasis in government policy. You're an executive coach, you're a human resource professional, and you're finishing a doctorate. What does that mean for my company? And that might not mean anything for your company, but take that level of experience and exposure and pair that now with an HVAC certification.
Yep.
And I'm able to come in, and now I get not only the business acumen, but I also understand that trade and that skill and what's required of other workers that possibly I could be looking to bring in and to expand upon the business.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, because there's been this culture, and you're totally fine if you want to disagree, and we can banter about this, because I really want to get your thoughts on this. So given that there is just a tremendous shortage of people that are qualified in these various trades versus the whole let me go to college just because that's the thing to do, and now I can't find a job, or it's harder for me to get a job because I have a degree because I'm competing with all these other people, whereas I could just as easily go to trade school, finish trade school, and the next day, walk straight into a job. I mean, what do you see that like how do you see that playing out for people? Like, is there a path that you think makes more sense, or is there a way to kind of blend the two? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I obviously would go for always blending the two.
Yeah.
And thank you. That was beautifully put. Because again, we want to ensure relevancy, and long gone are the days where the high school diploma, amounts to anything, or the associate's degree. And so you're looking at that, even if you go and you get that HVAC or that plumbing, or, you're looking at the trades, car, maintenance, all these positions that are available right now. Cybersecurity, you can take any one of these industries. What is going to set you apart as a leader? And so what are your long-term goals and strategies, and what is needed? So to that maybe possibly younger, kid getting out of high school, I would say absolutely look at the trades. Or if we're looking at our military population, saying, Okay, what are you looking to do? Case in point, I had a transitioning service manager of a very large military installation the other day tell me, well, Chaunte, the troops just aren't interested in these jobs, and we want to focus on the jobs that the soldiers want. And I said, point blank, I don't care what jobs the soldiers want. I care what jobs are out there. I care what jobs are available, because if a service member cannot exit the military and successfully reintegrate with a career path ahead of them, forward thinking, already writing out the narrative, and they're not successful, then what happens to their resiliency? What happens to their overall health? You see, the civilian community is looking at us as the military right now going, yeah, we want to hire from your pool of people. If I, as a single mother with two small children, have someone coming to fix my AC, and I realize that they kind of their picture might look crazy, I'm not sure if I'm going to feel comfortable with that person coming to my home. But then I see in their bio that they were in the military. I might feel a little bit more comfortable and confident if I realize that that's one of my brothers or sisters who has served in the military. So I think there's a lot of value add in that alone, but also in the leadership principle, and that we're looking for leaders to continue serving within the communities. And so leveraging both of those, so you get that HVAC, you get that plumbing, you're working the next day, possibly making up to six figures. I mean, it's extremely lucrative. You add a secret, a security clearance to that. And then, by the way, maybe you don't want to work as many hours as it's going to take to make that six figures. So you couple that with using your GI Bill or Voc Rehab, and you get that degree on the side. It's beautiful to marry the two, because then you realize, you know what? I'm going to end up taking over this business or buying this business or starting my own business. And now you understand all aspects of the trades. And again, it's an industry that's not going away.
Right.
So to me, absolutely beneficial to look at it. And I actually have this happening on a military installation here soon. We're going to be talking about all industry perspectives and how to have career pathways of progression, just like we do in the military.
Share with us a little bit of your story then, your path to your different degrees that you've worked towards, and then you shared with us a little bit about your gym venture. But walk us through the story of how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yeah. So full transparency, I was going to get the bachelor's in kinesiology, until my father said bachelor's of business, and he really helped pave the way for my success when it came to my education, or else I probably would have gone with the popularity contest at the beginning and doing what everyone else was doing. Well, this degree looks fun versus what do we foresee in the future as relevant and what's needed. And so, and today I'm thankful to say that my father is still doing this for our veteran population. He's the director of veteran affairs for the city of Houston. And that's the second largest veteran population in our country. So absolutely amazing now that he's still giving back to others, or I would not be where I am. So I went from, like I said, opening my gym to realizing that that was not my full passion. And so for me, when people say, follow your passion, I kind of reassess and look at it that in the military, we wear so many hats. And it's important to understand that all of those hats become a part of us. And so to not negate one of those things, we volunteer or voluntold within our local community. How do we continue to give back once we switch uniforms? And so I was always looking for ways to volunteer. I was in San Antonio at the time and to give back. And I stumbled upon a very large volunteer opportunity that led me into the nonprofit world, which then led me to being a director at the YMCA, starting a master's degree in an MPA with an emphasis in government and policy. And that was because of my newfound passion for the nonprofit sector, coupled with the fact that the state of Texas in 2011 had dumped millions into mental health. And my family was kind of coming together saying, how do we go from being so strong in uniform to then just failing at reintegration, not being able to be successful, losing all hope, losing agency. Again, there's agency and pathway, and your agency is your resiliency, your level of hope, the reason why you want to pursue a goal. And when we get out of the military, if we don't foresee that pathway that we're used to seeing, we can easily give up hope and a level of pursuance because we don't know what to pursue.
That's so good.
And that kind of led my family and I sitting around, a bonfire talking about how could we reach further upstream into the military? How could we support at a higher level to where we're not failing at transition? Because full transparency, we fail at transition, at that reintegration, we're failing at recruitment and retention, all in the same. You can't negate one of those. And so we looked at starting a nonprofit. My father to this day would tease me and say that he wasn't sure if this was just a millennial thing. And kind of where was I going to take it and how long would it stick, being that the gym didn't last very long. And I think this is all part of our learning ability and our learning curve and kind of how we are within the military culture of if you're listening to, follow your heart, follow your passion, follow without having data, facts, and statistics to back it, then you're missing a major component. And, no one told me when I was opening a gym that I would be answering to every single person who walked through that door.
Yeah.
There were so many things that no one told me. It's not like telling your troops that, hey, we're all going to do PT.
Right.
It takes coaching and corrosion. It's just interesting to kind of see what people think a business is going to be and then what it ends up not being. But so when we decided to start this nonprofit, we looked at what the DoD was already teaching. And now today, the Centurion Military Alliance multidisciplinary curriculum is viewed as a force multiplier from the Department of Defense and assisting the transition assistance program for our military. And we got there because our curriculum is a multidisciplinary curriculum. So it's constantly evolving with societal trends and the global, when you're looking at from an analytic perspective of, again, that data, the trends analysis of what's going on right now, and how do we ensure that we are put on those pathways. And Centurion Military Alliance teaches that through education, finance, and vocation, one should find their positionality. In the military, we talk about being prepared. And so to explain it, Aaron, I'm preparing to be a doctor. I am not one yet. And so my position right now, my education, MPA with an emphasis in government and policy, human resource management certificate. I'm an executive coach. I made sure I had all these things in order to be relevant for Centurion Military Alliance. So my education absolutely speaks to my vocation. Now, while working for a nonprofit, will that allow me to be financially stable? And which lends to financial literacy. And so there within lies the question, and where those pillars intersect is where you find your positionality. Now, those pillars are constantly moving, constantly shifting. Whether it's from finances to education, pursuing the doctorates, pursuing a technical, pursuing a trade, pursuing, that next certification. These pillars are constantly evolving. And so self-awareness is key. And in the military, when one of these pillars are rocked, we are still okay with our foundation of holistic health, well-being, and resiliency because we're surrounded by a military family. Now, when you get out, all three of those pillars are rocked. Your education no longer speaks necessarily to your vocation. Think about all those dusty old war college degrees, military leadership.
Right.
You go look at job descriptions today, you're not finding military leadership on these job descriptions.
That's true.
So again, the military says, be prepared. We say, yes, be prepared, but understand your positionality and be able to articulate that level of experience to me on a daily basis. Tell me who you are. And then let's talk about where you want to be. And so with what Centurion Military Alliance has been able to create, and now what my doctoral research is speaking to, is that through understanding each of those pillars and assessing one's level of hope within each pillar, that's how we're going to even combat suicide.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a real problem too. And I can't help but suspect, I mean, I don't have hard data sitting in front of me, but I can't help but suspect that some of that is due to just a lack of general vision and purpose. And before we go on, can you please remind, so I'm following those 3 pillars. Remind me what those are again. So I have education, experience. What else?
Yeah, so Centurion Military Alliance's 3 pillars are educational attainment, financial literacy, and vocational proficiency.
Got it.
With the foundation of the pillars is holistic health, well-being, and resiliency.
Got it. Okay. I absolutely love that, and I've never heard it articulated in that way. And so,
yeah. So the great thing is my father and I actually co-authored this curriculum together. So when he finished his PhD, his doctoral research was on the mentoring and stewardship of these pillars and the critical impact it makes on recruitment, retention, and reintegration. And so that's why now Centurion Military Alliance teaches at the Sergeant Major's Academy or the Chief Leadership Course or the Garrison Commander's Course. We're actually a part of professional military education.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Shifting gears just ever so slightly, would you mind sharing with us a story just about a very pivotal moment in your career? And it may have been a tragedy or just a severe difficulty or challenge. And how did you bounce back or power yourself through that? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a very deep question.
Yeah.
In full transparency, about 2 years ago now, I've been divorced for a little over a year, but my ex was going through a lot and had been battling PTSD, and I was not just the military spouse but the caregiver role, and he's still working a full-time job, so it's one of those things where no one would have known that he suffered through PTSD and suicidal ideation and the stress and the impact that it had on me and my family. And so my family was trying to help in the midst of all of this. My father had battled cancer, and so here I am, a mom with 2 young children, with a husband going through all of this, a father that had gone through chemo and radiation, and still trying to maintain and help our military populace, because it is the passion that drives me. And I will tell you that anything negative in my life that I have been through, I get through it by helping someone else. And I've always viewed that. When my ex chose to walk away and leave my family, I was blessed that my father was able to step in and that my children carry his last name, and he's a man of strength that was there. And I look at that and I say, when people, well, Chaunte, why did this happen to you? Why did something so bad? And we hear that a lot. We hear, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, because none of us are good inherently.
Right.
We all have something that is bad. We've all thought bad thoughts. And I do that tongue in cheek, but I truly believe that. But 2, this has allowed me now, as I go out and I help and support other caregivers, as I teach military spouses holistic health, well-being, and resiliency, and the ability and the critical need to be self-aware, to have a backup plan, to know who you are. Because if you would have asked me a couple of years ago, was this going to happen to you, Chaunte? I would have never have foreseen it. And I think that I would rather some of the negative things happen to me because I had a support structure in place.
Yeah.
And not just that support structure, but I have that ability since I was a child that if something bad is happening, there's a story behind it. God is going to use that for good. He has a purpose.
Absolutely.
And I think when you look at our military culture, Baron, we volunteer. And I love that about the military. We're always voluntold to do something. And I firmly believe in my heart that is our ability to give back, that keeps us moving forward. Sometimes I love to run 5Ks. I'm a CrossFit coach and a yoga instructor, and I love to run. And for a couple years in Houston, I was number one in all these races, and I was on this streak. Well, all of a sudden, my children wanted to start running with me. They no longer wanted to be in the stroller. They wanted to get out and run, maybe get back in, get out and run. And it dawned on me for the first time that sometimes, you have to take a step back in order to launch someone else forward. And that's the beauty in leadership. That's the beauty in encouraging future generations. And it's something now that through the midst of the ugly, the tears, the pain, you see the beauty in the next generation. You see the beauty in lifting up someone else because you have a story that's impactful and that resonates.
That's awesome.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I just can't help but I'm trying to put myself in your shoes when you're in the middle of just something really, just not fun. And then you're taking all that and you're just working on how do I impact other people positively, and how do I basically give them what it is that I need, and just continue to just kind of pour yourself out to people.
Yeah. And I mean, that year too, and I look back on the year with Centurion Military Alliance, it was impactful. It was amazing that, I witnessed someone walk away. My children watched someone drive away, physically watched. And then 3 days later, I was on a plane headed to a CMA workshop.
Wow.
Now, I share that, and I have not shared that yet, on this kind of platform, but I share it with intent because, again, I'll never forget my son came up to me. And because, of course, as a mother, it's devastating. Your children witness something that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy.
Yeah.
And my son came to me, and he was 6 years old, and I had, been crying and very upset. And my son said this to me. He said, "Mommy, can you please get up and can you get ready like you do for CMA?" Mm-hmm. And that impacted me on probably the best advice. It caused some more tears, but the best advice I ever could have received came out of the mouth of my baby boy.
Wow.
He was just saying, "Mommy, get up. You help people at CMA. You help the soldiers. Get up and help me."
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing the things that our kids will say, and it'll just be so amazingly honest, and there's no jab or punch being cloaked in the statement. It's just straight from their heart, and it's amazing how those moments, because I've many of those moments too, where just they'll say something and it you've never heard it said so plainly, and it just pierces you.
It does. And that's why, we can't negate the future generation. And so my message to a lot of those that, whether I'm speaking on PTSD or MSD or to the caregivers, is, remember why you raised your right hand to serve. Remember why you chose to be a spouse. Remember the feeling that you had of pride that was instilled in you from serving and doing something that was bigger than yourself. And now look at the future and then tell me that you can't stand strong enough and long enough to be able to encourage and support them.
That's quite a statement. Well, I feel like you may have already kind of answered this question, but I'd love to answer it anyway, or ask you anyway. To those veterans out there, and we talked about this, I believe it was offline, but to those veterans that are struggling with a little bit of their purpose and just understanding where it is that they need to be headed, what advice would you give them in terms of just getting themselves on track and with a renewed vigor and purpose?
So, it depends on which stage of the transition that they're facing. But number one, I would say that next job, you might just need a job. You might be due to your finances. And so that self-assessment is key with what is it that what jobs are out there, not even what you want to do, but start researching job descriptions. Actually see what positions are available, because those are the facts. And so don't read too much into the weeds on people's opinions on LinkedIn. Get off of the opinion train. If you don't have a degree, your certification, licensure, any kind of vocation that you can take in to actually get employment, then save whatever book that it was that you're reading, whether it's, Simon Sinek or What Color Is Your Parachute or any of that. Take a break, take a breather, make sure that you have that degree, that certification, licensure needed for a position, and then constantly kind of self-assess. And if you're walking into a position that you just need a job because of finances and you're not happy about that, I would tell that individual to find something to volunteer for. I would tell that individual to possibly go home and love on your family a little bit more. Maybe they need your time. It's okay to have to take a job for a while to get used to the civilian sector and to make sure that you are successful in that reintegration process. And lastly, finding your sense of purpose to me comes with finding those volunteer opportunities or spending time with family. But I would definitely say, don't lose sight of who you were in the military. Don't lose sight of the military culture. Don't lose, obviously I'm going to say don't lose your fitness level, because right. I believe in PT, because I think that's why the civilian sector likes us. While we're wearing the uniform, we look good, we feel good, we're servant leaders, we're volunteering, we're strong advocates, we're voices, we're lifelong learners, all these great attributes that we have. Now just find a way to plug that into the civilian sector. And it might take time. It's a humbling process. It's beyond humbling. Rank does not matter. I deal with the most senior leaders who are walking into possibly entry-level positions because they're trying to get their feet in the door. And just remain humble yet strong, and know that someone is always watching you. And so that mentoring and stewarding piece is a huge aspect, because whether it's that future generation that's looking at you, your children that are looking at you, your friends, possibly friends that are still in the military looking at whether you're going to be successful or not, but somebody is always watching your moves, and especially in the day of social media. So just think about for a moment, sometimes take the focus off of you and think about how you can successfully impact the culture. And if you raised your right hand to serve, how do you continue serving within your local community?
That's sage words of wisdom. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Chaunte, I just want to thank you once again for spending some time with me and sharing some of your experience. I thank you for being incredibly open, and it's my hope, it's my prayer that your story and the stories of others that they're able to really connect with people wherever they may find themselves. They may have been transitioned to 1 or 2 years. They may have been out for 20 plus years. But the point is that we're not alone. We have this amazing, huge community, this big network, and I get the sense that it really just takes a little bit of effort to plug in, to reach out for help, and to reach out to some great nonprofits and different organizations. And thank you for the work that you're doing through Centurion Military Alliance and all the different projects that you're working on.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's a great way to end here and to sign off is don't do anything alone. You're not alone. You haven't gotten to where you've gotten by yourself. There's always someone left, right, in front, behind, and just remember that. Don't do it alone. So Thank you, Aaron. That's great advice.
Chaunte was such a joy to have on the show. I loved hearing her story and for her willingness to share some personal experiences. I hope you hear her story and really pull out a few amazing ideas and concepts and apply it to your own life. It's clear she has a huge heart to serve others and has used all the hardships she's endured by looking outward and helping others. Be sure to connect with her on social media and learn more about her organization, Centurion Military Alliance. She and her organization are doing amazing things. Thanks so much for listening. And seriously, are you enjoying the show? I've got more than a dozen episodes produced and distributed, and I'm planning on doing more, but I would love your feedback. Are you finding value in these? Drop me a line at podcast@boldmedia.us and let me know. I would love to hear from you. Connect with me, Aaron Spatz, on social media. I'm literally on all platforms and would love to connect. On Instagram, it's Aaron with 2 underscores and my last name. Twitter, it's just my first and last name. Look me up and let's connect. If you're enjoying the show, please share it with your friends. If you really wanted to, the best way is to share a link to an episode on your social media and blast it out. Feel free to tag me as well. I pray you're doing well and staying safe through this virus craziness. I'm optimistic we'll be out of the woods real soon. Thanks again so much. See you next week.